All right, welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker, and you are listening to episode number 51 of the podcast. It's Sunday, June the 4th, and we are live on YouTube. For those of you who subscribe on YouTube, this is a new thing we're doing, and if you don't subscribe, just search for MMA on the Rocks on YouTube, and I believe if you subscribe, they'll send you an email every time we go live. So we're doing a thing live this time. We'll give it a shot. So we can't edit it to make us sound as pretty as we normally do with all the filters and the voiceovers and all the extra work that goes in afterwards that I'm totally making up. And joining me as always, all the way from New Jersey, my co-host Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how are you doing on this Sunday afternoon?
I'm wonderful, Bill. Trying to figure out when the weather's going to start to get warm again. But other than that, I'm good. How are you doing, Bill?
I'm doing awesome, man. I don't have to figure out when the weather's going to get warm again because this is Florida and it's always warm. I think it was like 88 degrees yesterday. Today it was raining this morning, so it cooled everything off, which was kind of nice. Something that wasn't cooled off was Max Holloway's win streak. How do you like that transition? So let's talk about the pay-per-view last night. UFC 212 from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Headlined by Max Holloway, coming in on a 10-fight win streak with an interim title around his waist that he won in a complete destruction of Anthony Pettis a couple of months ago. So Holloway looked awesome in this fight. Came out a little slow in the first round, but he was just kind of getting Aldo's rhythm, and it was the Max Holloway show after that. Aldo looked a little bit flat. He was flat-footed. He didn't have his trademark footwork. He wasn't throwing leg kicks. So I don't know if something was up with him, if he had an injury or there mentally anymore. This was kind of a theory I had bounced around last week when we were breaking down this card. You know, ever since the unfortunate Conor McGregor, well, unfortunate for Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor fight, he hasn't really seemed the same. He always had kind of more of an energy and a passion for fighting, and I think that world tour, that press tour with Conor McGregor, just kind of sucked the life out of him a little bit, and Conor really got in his head, and I feel like he just doesn't enjoy it like he used to. He used to be in there and look like a little kid, like he was really having fun. He would dance around and, really kind of toy with his opponents because his skill set was just so much higher. And a lot of people were talking about the 10-fight win streak of Max Holloway coming into this fight. Jose Aldo had an 18-fight win streak going into the Conor McGregor fight. It was the who's who of the division. Uriah Faber, Mike Brown, Cub Swanson. You look at his resume, and it's ridiculous. Frankie Edgar, who he would go on to defeat again. So what were your thoughts on this fight, Jeff? And did it go down the way you thought it would?
Yeah, Bill, I really thought that Max Holloway was going to win. I didn't think he would struggle as much. I thought Jose Aldo came out looking really strong. He had a stiff jab. I felt like he tagged Holloway a couple of times in the first round. And, Holloway, it took him probably about 2 rounds to really get started, figure out Aldo's timing and stuff. And then in the third round, he made it look like light work, man. So good for him. It was an awesome fight.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that Holloway didn't have a reach advantage because he looks so much bigger, but I guess Aldo just has long arms and Holloway seems real lanky though too. It did look like he had a reach advantage, but as far as the numbers go, he doesn't. What was really impressive was his control on the ground when he had rocked Aldo and Aldo was trying to recover his butterfly guard and spring back up. Holloway was just all over him. Like everywhere Aldo turned, there was Holloway putting pressure down with his hips and with his legs, and just showing like real superior ground control there. I thought that was really impressive. I mean, the combination he put him down with was pretty slick. It was a 1-2 and then a 1-2 that followed it up right away once he saw Aldo flinch a little bit. And, you know, Aldo's kind of giving the thumbs up while Holloway's raining blows down on his head. But, you know, John McCarthy made the right call stopping that fight, I think, because you can't let a guy just keep getting hit in the head, even if he's saying he's okay. Like, I'm okay. But like repeated blows to the head. And, you know, I think he gave him plenty of time. I think he gave him the respect of a champion, you know, giving him a chance to recover. What did you think about the stoppage, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a good stoppage. Max Holloway, like you said, he looked great on top, man. He was just riding that wave. Anywhere Aldo went, he went. It was really smooth. And yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was a good stoppage. Aldo wasn't defending himself. And even before, I felt like him even giving up his back was a really bad sign.
Yeah, for sure. And you were saying, you and I were texting during this fight last night, and you were saying that he should have gone for the choke there. It looked like he didn't want to submit Aldo, because he probably could have gone for a choke there and, you know, maybe could have gotten him out of there that way. It seemed like he wanted to make a statement and punch his way to victory there. So awesome win for Max Holloway, who, you know, a lot of people doubt him. And even, you know, even me going into this fight, it was hard to pick against Aldo. You know, I don't make picks or anything, but I could see a strong argument for why people would pick Aldo, you know, being that he's never really been in trouble in the octagon. You know, there was the 13 seconds with McGregor, if you want to count that, but I don't think he was in trouble there. He got caught. You know, a guy who's just so dominant for so long. And Max Holloway is very unassuming. You know, he's a nice guy, you know, very religious, very well-spoken. He kind of looks like a little kid. He's got like the puberty mustache thing going on that like just doesn't just, I hate to be a critic of facial hair because I know that's a sensitive subject for a lot of men out there, but you know, he looked like a guy that's going to dominate someone like Jose Aldo. He's very unassuming. He's got kind of a high-pitched voice. I like what he had after the fight at the post-fight press conference where he said, "I'm not after money fights. I want to win big fights, and then I want to get paid," which I thought was kind of a cool way to put it, because he's not out here saying, like, pay me now. He's like, I brought home this trophy. Like, now, you know, pay me for the next fight. Keep putting bigger guys on me, and I'm going to take them out. He's like, I'm not looking for money fights. I want to rule this division and get paid doing it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And, you know, Aldo, I think, was getting ahead of himself a little bit because he was saying that he wanted to move up to lightweight after this fight and look for some super fights. So I feel like maybe he was looking past Holloway a little bit, but at the same time, he came into this fight looking so flat. So I don't know what to think about that. Do you think Aldo maybe was looking past Holloway a little bit, or do you think Holloway is just that good?
Yeah, I think Aldo, I think he made a miscalculation with Holloway. I don't think he took him as seriously as he should have. But Bill, you know, we'd been talking about this last week. Holloway is no joke, man. He has a 10-fight win streak. His last loss was Conor McGregor. So, you know, this guy's the real deal, man. He's beaten some big names in that division too.
Yeah, and he's still so young. So now on an 11-fight win streak in a division that's pretty well stacked. I would imagine Frankie Edgar is going to be next for him. We talked about this after Frankie Edgar's last win over Yair Rodriguez, that if Aldo won, you can't put Edgar in there against him for a third time. But if Holloway won, that's the fight to make. And I know Cub Swanson's in the conversation, but, you know, Cub Swanson does have a loss to Max Holloway. So I think Frankie Edgar is the next natural choice. And I was looking up Max Holloway's age kind of breaking this down in my head, but he's 25 years old, which is ridiculous. He's big for that division, so he'll keep growing into his body, and we could see him to 155 later in his career and possibly being a 2-division champion. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but what do you think about potential matchup between Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar? And do you think it will happen in Hawaii?
I don't know if it would happen in Hawaii, but that's one I would love to see. We've talked about this 100 times. I'm a huge Frankie Edgar fan. I feel like he's the most deserving, especially after what he did to Yair Rodriguez, man. I mean, that kid's a superstar coming up, and Frankie Edgar, put him away pretty convincingly. So, yeah, Max Holloway versus Frankie Edgar. Dana, wherever you're at, make it happen.
Yeah, Dana White, we know you're listening to the show, so text me if that it should be Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway. And Max Holloway is really pushing for the Hawaii card. He wants to see a UFC in Hawaii. Logistically, it's a little bit of a nightmare because in Canada time zone, I think it's 5 or 6 hours behind the East Coast, depending on leap year, or not leap year, depending on the season, because they don't wind the clocks back. What's that called? Why am I?
Daylight
savings time. They don't do daylight savings time in Hawaii. So it's 5 or 6 hours behind the East Coast, and then venue is an issue as well because the big stadium there is outdoors. So they have to make sure that they're doing it, at a time of year where it's not like the rainy season or whatever. I'm not a big climate guy or geography, so I don't know too much about that. So let's get back to talking about fighting, something that I also don't know too much about, but I have a show about it, so we got to talk about it. And so the co-main event was very one-sided, a lot more so than I thought it would be. Claudia Gadelha and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. These are two of the toughest women on the planet. They've proven that time after time. Both of them, their only losses leading into this fight were to the champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So Gadelha just dominant. I mean, really persistent with her takedown, which, we know she has great takedowns and awesome control on the ground. Kowalkiewicz, we know, is a very reputable striker, but her, once she's on the ground, it seems to be a little bit of a weakness. She does have good takedown defense normally, and she's good at springing back up when she gets taken down, but Gadelha was having none of it, and she showed real dominance on the ground. What were your thoughts on this fight, Jeff?
Yeah, Claudia Gadelha is a monster, dude. She said she changed up her training, and it definitely helped a lot. She looked really dominant, especially on the ground. And even getting Karolina to the ground was super easy for her. I mean, it didn't look hard at all. She does this thing where she kind of like swings people off the cage, and it works really well for her.
Yeah, it's kind of like a judo wrestling hybrid takedown that's it's pretty unique to her, and it works for her. But now we're in a situation where Gadelha was already the #1 contender as far as the rankings go, and she has 2 losses to the champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Granted, they were close fights, but you can't, it's a tough situation because how do you put them in there together a third time? Now, when Brian Stan asked her what she wanted next, she kind of said she wants to take care of some other things in her life, and she's going to move to Arizona, which I assume means she's going to start training with Greg Jackson. Thought is that she will move up to 125 pounds. She's not huge for the strawweight division. She's only 5'3", but she does carry a lot of muscle. So maybe 125 pounds would be the right spot for her. The only problem being once Jędrzejczyk continues to clean out the division, I imagine Rose Namajunas is next in line for a title shot. And if Jędrzejczyk beats her, there's no reason for her to not move up to 125 once that division is established and there's a champion and there's the potential for a super fight there. What do you think, Jeff? Do you see Gadelha taking some time off? Do you see her moving up to 125? If Rose Namajunas challenges Jędrzejczyk and comes away with the victory, then Gadelha and Namajunas would make sense as a fight to make. But otherwise, how do you see this going down?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors here, but as of right now, I think Gadelha should take some time off, especially if she wants to relocate. I mean, it's not like she's moving down the street. She's moving to a whole different country. So I think she should take some time off. And then, you know, once the 125 division is introduced, I think she should make a run for it. I'd love to see her and Andrade go at it. But for now, I think that the most logical person to challenge Jędrzejczyk is Rose Namajunas, like you said.
Yeah, sure. And then, you know, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I would be excited to see her back in there again pretty soon. I don't see her moving up to 125. She's got a little bit of a smaller frame. She looks like she's more suited to stay at 115. Can definitely her way back up to contend. Her only losses are to the champion Jędrzejczyk and to the number one. Everyone else, you know, she handled pretty well. I mean, she had a close fight with Rose Namajunas, but you know, as far as everyone else, she held her own. So let's keep working our way down this card. Marquardt, I had said last week on the show that I would have loved to see this fight 5 years ago. I maintain that opinion. I would have definitely loved to see these two go at it in their prime when they were both had ridiculous hand speed and fought really aggressive and threw nasty combinations and were kind of juiced up a little bit more. And Nate Marquardt's one of these guys who, even after USADA came along, he still looks like a fucking Greek statue. I mean, the guy is just, from what I hear about him, he's just like a natural freak, like insane athlete, just a lot of natural abilities, and he's able to just be looking in shape all the time. The other thing I was thinking last night is I wouldn't mind seeing this fight again about 8 months from now in Rizin, where these two would be juiced to the gills. And I know Vitor has one more fight on his UFC contract, but he said last night he wants to fight 5 more times, so get used to seeing him UFC. I mean, the guy's 40 years old. If he fights 5 more times, you know, it's not going to be in a year, so he'll be, you know, 42 or 43 still fighting in the UFC, according to what he was saying last night. He's been asking for this Masters League. He definitely didn't look like the Vitor of old, but he said he's reinventing himself. He said he wants to throw people off so they don't know if he's going to explode in the first round or if he's going to explode in the third. I do agree with him that he did look explosive, surprisingly explosive in that third round, but definitely nothing like the explosiveness we're used to seeing from Vitor Belfort. And the other thing is I actually had Marquardt winning this fight. I thought he won the first 2 rounds, aside from a few flurries from Belfort. But, you know, being in Brazil, I thought if it went to the judges, there was no chance Marquardt had of winning this fight. So I could, it was a close fight. So I could see it going to Vitor. What were your thoughts on this fight, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Bill. I thought Vitor won. I thought it was a close fight, definitely, but I gave rounds 3 and probably 2 to Vitor Belfort. But that first round, I thought it was all Nate Marquardt.
Yeah, for sure. That second round is the X factor there. It was real close, depending how you score it. You know, Vitor's face got busted up a little bit, but then so did Marquardt's. And it was hard to get into this fight too because it has no implications. I mean, Marquardt's not ranked at all. Vitor is still ranked for some reason, although I couldn't tell you what that reason is, since he's had he's had some. I mean, it wasn't that long ago he fought Wyman for the title, but you know, I just don't see him as being relevant anymore. And you know, he's really pushing for this Masters division because he just doesn't want to retire. The guy wants to fight forever, which you can't fault him for. But somebody who can't fight forever is Olawale Bangbose. Bang something.
Yeah, I don't know if the G is silent because the commentators yesterday were saying Bambose, so I don't know.
Bangbose. Bambose. Yeah. It's so the way his name is spelled is just like not natural for native English speakers like myself. But Paulo Henrique Costa, the storm of Bambose, and it was kind of it was a spectacle, this fight, because these guys were like two caged animals. They almost fought each other at the weigh-ins. They're both known for first round bouts. So if anybody had bet on this fight getting out of the first round, you made a little bit of money last night. So Bambose was like jumping all around the cage in the first round, swinging heavy leather. The way I was, the guy fights like a Hummer. You know, he's crazy powerful. The gas mileage is going to break the bank. And, you know, Barachina, as they call him, entered the storm, and for Bambose to just completely run out of gas and then got the TKO. What did you think about this fight? And back in there, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill, this fight was at 1,000 miles an hour. Like you said, Olawale Bambose came out. He was just, every punch he threw, every strike he threw was a knockout blow. And, you know, he gassed out, and you could tell as soon as the first round ended, he was taking some deep breaths. He was even looking labored, just walking back to his corner. So I thought Borrachinha was definitely going to win this one just based on cardio. But, dude, these guys like to bang, bro. I would love to see them get in there again.
Let me bang, bro. Yeah. Somebody had said on Twitter they want to see Borrachina and Uriah Hall, and I think that would be a fun fight. Because you know, Uriah Hall's a little bit more patient, conserves his energy a little bit more. So it would be interesting to see Borrachina tested against somebody like that, and that would definitely be a fun fight to watch. Another fun fight was Yancy Medeiros and Eric Silva, and this was my pick last week for the sleeper fight on the card. I thought it would be fight of the night contender. Both of these guys were a little bit more reserved than we're used to seeing from them. They're both kind of known for, you know, brawler styles, and Eric Silva especially known for taking a lot of risks in the cage, but he said that he wanted to be a little bit more conservative. You know, he's been around a while. He's been in a ton of fight of the nights. He's had a ridiculous amount of bonuses. So there was kind of a weird tension during this fight, which I really enjoyed between these two, because you didn't know when either of them would explode. And it was like, who's going to resort to their brawling roots first? And, you know, Yancy Medeiros caught Eric Silva with a huge punch behind the ear that dropped him, and got on top, and he rained down 5 huge unanswered blows on top of that. So it was stopped by the referee, and then Eric Silva immediately jumped up protesting the stoppage. I mean, the way he went down and his eyes rolled back and everything, and then the 5 big punches, I thought it was a good stoppage. But then the way he jumped back up and wasn't wobbly or anything, I guess he could make a case there. What did you think about the fight, Jeff? And what did you think about the stoppage, good or bad?
Listen, when you get hit with bombs and you go, for 5 of them and you don't respond, I think the fight needs to be stopped. So I'm not going to blame the ref for that one. I think it was a good stoppage. Eric Silva, he knows the drill, man. You got to defend yourself intelligently if you want the fight to not be stopped. But aside from that, I thought it was an awesome fight. I agree with you. I think Medeiros and Silva were just a little too tentative, a little too respectful of each other. But it was a fun fight, man. I loved the exchanges. You knew this was going to be a stand-up fight. So it was really good. Medeiros, a training partner of Max Holloway for this one. So it was a really fun fight to watch.
Yeah, they're making the Hawaiian Yancy Medeiros making the case for that UFC in Hawaii, because the two Hawaiians on the card came into Brazil and beat Brazilians, and they beat 2 tough Brazilians. So credit to Hawaii for this one. So Yancy Medeiros, he's been kind of hot and cold in the UFC so far, but I would like to see him get, maybe a top 15 guy next in that welterweight division and get in there and mix it up. I mean, he's got serious skills. He's well-rounded, and, I'm looking forward to seeing him back in there again. But yeah, as far as the stoppage, I think we're on the same page. Like, you got to stop that fight there, because he was able to jump back up, and then John Anik is in there like, I think that was a premature stoppage. Like, let's see how many of those punches John Anik's going to take. I think he needs to he needs to stick to the color commentary stuff and not have, because Dominic Cruz and Brian Stan were like silent after he said that. He was like, yeah, I think that was a premature stoppage. He got up right away. And but in any case, far be it from me to be critical of a professional broadcaster like that. That's an insanely difficult job. I mean, we're live on YouTube right now with 2 viewers, and I'm nervous beyond belief. So I'm used to being able to go back and edit this carefully. I don't actually do that, but there's just something about being able to record and then, post it later without thinking about it that makes me relax a little bit more. But how's everybody doing out there in YouTube land? Thanks for watching. And if you're listening to the podcast later, I'm sorry for this little tangent I'm going on. But another fight that I thought was ridiculously close, Rafael Assunção and Marlon Moraes. I'm not killing it with the names today. This one was super close. There were a lot of low blows from Assunção, and Moraes came in with a lot of momentum into the UFC. He was actually a favorite against the number 3 ranked Assunção, which is kind of ridiculous for a guy making his UFC debut to be a favorite over the number 3 ranked guy in the division. I didn't see Assunção getting this decision, but I don't think it's the biggest robbery of all time either. It was a close fight. It was well contested by both guys. I think even Assunção thought he lost at the end of the fight, but came away with a split decision. What were your thoughts on this one, Jeff?
Bill, I was excited up until the fight started. There was a lot of slipping when they were throwing kicks, and I think Moraes definitely had some, debut jitters. But honestly, I thought Assunção won this fight. But I mean, I'm not upset that Moraes didn't win. I wouldn't have been upset if Assunção had lost, just because I felt like this fight could have been a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Assunção for taking this fight. You got to respect guys who are willing to fight anybody these days, because they're few and far between. So, he could have easily said, like, are you kidding me? I'm ranked number 3. you're going to bring in this guy who's making his debut and I got to fight him and then, risk losing, my contender spot. But, he didn't do that. He took the fight and, he brought the fight to Moraes and, not the greatest debut for someone who had a lot of momentum behind them. And that seems to be the case for a lot of these guys that are coming over from other organizations, even if they've been champions. And I don't know if it's just the pressure of the UFC and, all the media and everything they get put through and the nerves and things like that. It's just like a completely different animal. But, I would be excited to see Moraes back in there. He comes from a great camp with Mark Henry, training with Frankie Edgar, Edson Barboza, and those guys. So he's got a legitimate pedigree. And I'm looking forward to seeing him back in there. And Sunstow as well. I think he's still a contender. And let's get him back in there pretty soon. The fight right before that, before we do our usual fast forward through the undercard, picking out fights that just kind of stand out. Antonio Carlos Jr., Shoeface, as they call him, which I think is one of the funniest nicknames, I guess, because his face just kind of looks like somebody's stomped on it. Like, I don't know. He's Antonio, if you're listening, just text me. And, I'll probably apologize pretty quick. Very, very dominant jiu-jitsu over a guy in Eric Spicely who is known for his ground game. So Carlos Jr. bringing this fight to the ground, keeping it there. He's got very unorthodox posture in his jiu-jitsu. He has like a very wide base. He puts pressure in very unusual ways, and he just kind of wrapped himself around Spicely in like such an odd way, the way he took his back at the end of the first round and then again in the second round. And it seemed like any way Spicely turned, Carlos Jr. was like basing out like with these giant limbs. I mean, the guy's competed in jiu-jitsu at super heavyweight, I believe. So he's legitimate jiu-jitsu competitor. I mean, he submitted Gary Tonin not too long ago in a flow grappling match, I believe. He caught him with a flying triangle, which, to submit Gary Tonin with anything is impressive. For those who don't know, Gary Tonin is one of the top submission grapplers in the world right now, coming out of Renzo Gracie's in New York City, training under John Danaher. So Carlos Jr., impressive, getting that submission with the rear naked choke in that second round. This is another guy who had a lot of hype coming into the UFC, and then it kind of tapered off. He had a big loss to Dan Kelly, who he called out at the end of this fight, which is cool that he wants to redeem that loss. So what were your thoughts on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, Antonio Carlos Jr. is a beast, man. He looked good. I didn't see him in any trouble at all. So, it was a nice win. Beautiful rear naked choke. I remember texting you about it and just saying Carlos Jr. is a beast.
Yeah, he is. Definitely legitimate jiu-jitsu skills. And, when he came into the UFC, he was still very raw as an MMA fighter. So we've definitely been able to see him evolve a lot. And I think it's exciting to see him as a contender. Maybe we get him in there against Barachina, or get him in there against Bembose. That would be kind of fun, because you'll have like the crazy winging striker who's got pretty decent wrestling against high level jiu-jitsu guy. I think. I mean, I have a pretty good idea of how that one would go, but the spectacle of it would be kind of fun. All right. Anything? Do you have the rest of the undercard in front of you, Jeff? Does anything else jump out at you? There was a couple of submissions and then a couple of knockouts as well. Any of these you want to kind of break down for us?
Unfortunately, I didn't watch the undercard.
All right, moving on. So another big announcement that came last night was the induction of Kazushi Sakuraba into the UFC Hall of Fame. This one kind of came as a surprise to me because I guess I don't think about like these Pride guys being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, but it's awesome that they are, because when you think of Sakuraba, obviously you think of Pride, but it's hard not to think of UFC and Pride as two separate entities, and that you know, it's easy to forget that the UFC acquired them, which is great because now you can watch all these Pride fights on UFC Fight Pass, which I always enjoy doing, and it's made my DVD collection obsolete. And then I gave you a lot of my Pride DVDs when I moved to Florida anyway, because I had to, I didn't want to bring so much stuff with me cross country. But Sakuraba, a legend of the sport. So for people who have never seen Sakuraba fight, log on to Fight Pass and look this dude up. He was just, so he was known for being the first guy to show the Gracies as beatable. They call him the Gracie Hunter for a reason. He beat Royce Gracie in a 90-minute fight, which is ridiculous to fight for an hour and a half. I can't do a lot of things for an hour and a half. I don't think I could even take a nap for an hour and a half. Forget about have a fight for an hour and a half. You know, go for a 90-minute bike ride. You know, I'll be exhausted. It's pretty ridiculous, but you know, he did it, and he went on to have such a legendary career. He fought everybody. I mean, he was 165 pounds. This guy fought and defeated Rampage Jackson. He fought Vanderlei Silva. He fought Kevin Randleman and beat him. He fought Nogueira. He fought every Gracie, Ken Shamrock. He fought the Gracies that like don't even show up to the reunion. Like, it's like, all right, your last name's Gracie. Let's go. Let's fight. He fought, you know, the who's who of, you know, legendary Pride fighters. Igor Vovchanchin, who was just a fucking monster. He was like kind of like Fedor before there was Fedor. If you don't know who Igor Vovchanchin is, go look him up on Fight Pass, but good luck spelling his last name. Yeah, so, and he even beat Vitor Belfort in 1999, which is like super young, super juiced up Vitor Belfort, and he went the distance with him and beat him at Pride 5. So definitely deserving. It was awesome to see, you know, Sakuraba get the tribute video and everything. And, you know, he fought until he was like 45 years old, and he was losing fights at the end there. But, you know, so much respect for that guy, you know, just getting in there, fighting heavyweights, fighting guys his weight. Like, he didn't care. He fought anybody. So especially guys out there like asking for money fights, you know, please take some notes from Kazushi Sakuraba. And yeah, so just the the whole Gracie family tree, just like picking them off the branches. Yeah, what were your thoughts on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, I think Sakuraba deserves it, man. Like you said, I was a little surprised because he was mostly a Pride guy. But man, who hasn't Sakuraba fought? This guy fought Mirko Krokop. Like, come on, dude. This guy's a nut.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mirko Krokop is a heavyweight. And we haven't even mentioned Sakuraba was a welterweight. I think the most he ever weighed was like 175. Like, come on, dude. This guy's a maniac. How do you not love Sakuraba? He's the Gracie Hunter. He was like a pro wrestler, but he could actually wrestle. I mean, you got to love it.
Yeah, I mean, just a beast. And like they ran out of Gracies. They're like, all right, Cecil Gracie, get over here. We gotta find somebody. We gotta find some Gracie who can beat this guy, Marcus Gracie. Like, get him in here. Yeah, but yeah, Sakuraba, total legend. Awesome to see him get the recognition. And it was a really cool tribute video. It's a shame that not a lot of people saw it because I highly doubt the numbers for this pay-per-view did well, the UFC 212. I just don't, I don't see it, you know, hitting even 500,000. Maybe it did 350,000 buys, 400,000 buys. Probably did well. Probably did pretty well in Brazil, but I don't know how many people are buying pay-per-views in Brazil. All of Hawaii probably bought it, but you know, who knows what they do in Hawaii? They might have just like one big projector that they have at the luau, and everybody they order it there, and everybody just comes and watches there. But yeah, I just don't. I mean, I was excited for this card, but I just don't see it doing big numbers by any means. So awesome that Sakuraba got inducted. And speaking of legends, I saw something a little bit concerning last night, and it was on Chuck Liddell's Instagram. And it was a picture of Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz dressed up in suits, having a stare down. And the caption on Chuck's Instagram was, "Why not?" Question mark. I've been hearing rumors of Chuck Liddell making a comeback, possibly in Bellator. I got to say, I hope it doesn't happen. And I definitely hope it doesn't happen against Tito Ortiz, because one, Tito just retired. Like, he went out on a high note. He submitted Chael Sonnen. You know, whether you believe it was legitimate or staged or whatever, because there was a lot of controversy there. You know, he went out on a high note. He's a legend of the sport. He's done a lot for the sport. So is Chuck Liddell. And Chuck Liddell's, you know, stayed in the UFC a little longer than he probably should have. I don't want to see this, but the worst part about it is, if it happens, I'm going to watch it, but I don't want to watch it. It's like a car accident. You know, you're like, I don't want to see them dragging those people out of that car, and, you know, they're cutting the seatbelt off them and everything, but then you can't look away. So it'd kind of be like that. Jeff, did you hear about this? And if not, what's your reaction?
Bill, why?
Why not?
Bill, why are we doing this? Come on. What's going on here, man? I mean, if Chuck Liddell's going to fight anybody, let him fight Sakuraba. They're the same age.
I think they might be. I mean, I'm surprised. I don't think they've fought before. So, and you know what? So Chuck and Tito have fought twice before. They were not even competitive fights. And Tito never wanted to fight Chuck because they trained together, and Chuck always got the better of Tito in the training room, and Tito knew it. I don't think there's anything. I mean, these guys are both legends. There's nothing for either of them to prove, but we're starting to see a trend with these guys who just can't let go. I mean, these guys are fighters, and they will always be fighters, you know, whether they're under contract with an organization or not. So you have to respect that about them. That's what made them great in their heyday. But damn, this is getting hard hard to watch. I mean, you know, you really don't want to see either of these. I mean, there's talk of Royce Gracie taking another fight too. And he's talking about fighting Matt Hughes. And Matt Hughes wants to get back in there. This is not like baseball, where you can have an old timers day and it's like cute, you know, and these guys get out there and they're like, can't really walk, and they make the base path a little shorter for them. And like, they give them like a big wiffle ball bat. And like, this is not baseball. This is dangerous. These are guys who have been suffering concussions, you know, while they were young and healthy. And now, you know, they're probably still in great shape, but, you know, I don't want to see these guys, you know, taking damage like this anymore. So Chuck Liddell, if you're listening, text me and let me talk you out of this. You got nothing to prove, especially against Tito Ortiz, who you dominated twice already. So in any case, let's move on. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So next week from Auckland, New Zealand, kind of an interesting scenario here. UFC Fight Night 110, and it's headlined by Mark Hunt and Derek Lewis. Now, Mark Hunt is a guy who has been bumping heads with the UFC big time. And it kind of seems like the UFC is like, oh, yeah, you want to fuck with us? Here's Derek Lewis. So I'm kind of interested to see how this one's going to work out. This is another one that would be surprising if it went out of the first round. I mean, these are two guys with ridiculous power. So it's kind of weird because it seems like this is a fuck you to Mark Hunt by giving him Derek Lewis, but then they're also letting him headline in his home country. So it's like fuck you, but you can fight at home. So it's like a gentle fuck you, but yeah, I don't know. So awesome fight though. How do you see this one going down, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, I think this is the UFC's way of telling Mark Hunt that the lawsuit's not going to go well. That's if he remembers what he's suing for after this fight, man. Derek Lewis, the beast, he's a monster. I feel like this is a really good matchup for both of them. They both have knockout power. So this is going to be fun, man. I don't see it going out of the first round, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mark Hunt's one of those guys that you can never count out because every time he's supposed to lose, he pulls a walk-off knockout out of nowhere. I definitely don't see this fight going to the ground. Both of these guys have solid takedown defense, and they use it to stay on their feet. Mark Hunt, 43 years old, still there and slinging leather. And Derek Lewis, just a monster in every sense of the word. I mean, after beating the crap out of Travis Brown, he goes, where Ronda Rousey's fine ass at. This is like one of the most epic post-fight comments of all time. I feel like that's an underrated one. That's right up there with "I'm not surprised, motherfuckers." That's just a classic. That's top 5, easily top 5 post-fight comments of all time. You beat the crap out of the guy, and then you ask where his fine ass fiance is. That's a new level of baller right there. So this is going to be an awesome fight, and this is a solid card. If you look at it, we got the co-main event, Derek Brunson, who has kind of been struggling a little lately, and Dan Kelly, who is another one of these guys. He's got like no knees left. He gets in that cage with his knees duct taped together just so his legs can stay stable, and he just gets in there and wins fights that he's not supposed to win. So Antonio Carlos Jr. calling out the winner of this, Brunson and Daniel Kelly. And then I'm just going to read off a couple of these, Jeff, and you let me know which ones you want to kind of go over. We got Ross Pearson fighting again against Dan Hooker. Tim Elliott is on this card, who's always exciting. He's fighting Ben Nguyen, I believe his name is pronounced. I'm usually good about the name pronunciations, but today is an off day, so forgive me, everybody.
Bill, this is the only day we record. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the one day, one day we do this live. I didn't do any preparation and learn how to pronounce people's names, which usually I do. Or I go back and voice dub, put in. Actually, I never knew that. All right, so Tim Elliott on here, Ross Pearson, Derek Brunson, Daniel Kelly. Who's jumping out at you here, Jeff?
Really like Brunson versus Kelly. That looks like a super good fight. Dan Kelly, we talked about. He got that win over Rashad Evans. I think, did he beat Rashad Evans?
Yes, he did.
Okay, he did. Yeah, so this looks like a really interesting fight. Derek Brunson putting on a show against Silva in his last fight. But yeah, Tim Elliott, always a fun time to watch him. I don't know much about Ben Nguyen, I'm going to assume is how you say his name.
Yeah.
Because in Spanish, we got the Nye that makes the NG sound. So
Yeah.
Nguyen, I assume. But I've never seen him fight before. But Tim Elliott, fun time. The only guy really to give Demetrius Johnson trouble in any round.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting fight.
Yeah, Tim Elliott, and apparently Tim Elliott is into transvestite hookers in Thailand. So him and I were kind of going back and forth on Twitter a little bit. I forget how it even came up, but he was saying like he's looking to fuck anything that moves in Thailand, and he doesn't care if it has a penis or not. So, you know, I like his style. Tim Elliott's a beast. He's looking to take over the world and you know, nab some chicks with dicks over in Thailand and beat some people up. So you got to admire the guy's style. So that's Fight Night 110, Auckland, New Zealand. That's going to be next weekend, June 10th. So that'll be a good time. That'll be a fun little card to watch, and it's free. So.
What time is that starting? Do you know? Because that's like a 1,000-hour time difference.
Yeah, I think it's 1,003 hours. That's a great question. We should look this up. UFC Fight Night 110.
Actually, it's looking like it might be 10 p.m. So
Cool.
Usual start time.
Yeah. So that means it's going to be like in the morning over there, which they tend to do a lot. When I went to Japan, I went to UFC Fight Night in Japan. It started like 8 o'clock in the morning. So it was kind of weird going in there. You know, you have your beers and stuff watching the fights, and then you come outside and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you feel like it's the middle of the night, especially because I had just arrived in Japan the day before. So I was still like jet lagged. I didn't even know what year it was when I came out. I came out like Robin Williams and Jumanji. I was like, what year is it?
Yeah, I remember when I went to Florida to visit you, I was jet lagged for a little bit.
Yeah, even though it's the same time zone. In any case, Jeffrey, I'm sitting here. I'm sipping on some of this. I was telling you about the Tierra's tequila
Yes.
last week. So I got some of the tequila that I infused with the coffee beans, and I'm just kind of sipping on this. I put 1 ice cube in there, and it's real tasty. Like just the kind of earthy flavors of the, you know, coffee comes from a plant, tequila is made from a plant. So, you know, they go together, and I'm probably going to make the cocktail video. If there's any tequila left, I'm going to make that next YouTube video today. So I'll be putting that up sometime next week. So keep an eye out for that. MMA on the Rocks on YouTube if you're listening anywhere else right now. And last night during the fights, I was sipping on some Beck's beer. I don't know if you've ever had Beck's beer, Jeff. So it's a German recipe beer. And it is now produced in the United States in St. Louis. And like that kind of bitter taste to it, like a Heineken. And it, you know, if you've ever seen Beck's, it comes in like the green bottles. Now, you might be wondering why some beer comes in green bottles and some beer comes in brown bottles. And the reason for that, I'll tell you, since you're so obviously wondering, is they used to bottle beer in green bottles, and they found that sunlight would get through and it would kind of skunk the beer and make it smell a little funny, which is why Heineken and Beck's kind of smell and taste a little funny and bitter and skunky. So they discovered that brown bottles would block out more sunlight and it wouldn't affect the beer as much. So that's why a lot of beer comes in brown bottles. However, if you see beer in green bottles, it's not really for any practical marketing. So Heineken has always come in green bottles, so they keep distributing their beer in green bottles. It has no benefit whatsoever. So since you were wondering, that's the explanation. But you know, Beck's is like a pretty solid beer. Like if it's on sale, which it was, I think it was like 2-for-1 6-packs or something at Publix over here. So I was like, why not? It's something a little different. You know, I'm always so into all the IPAs and the pale ales and everything like that. Like, let me get something a little bit lighter. But yeah, it's a German recipe for beer. So it's a German beer, but it is made in the United States currently. So it's got a little bit of a different flavor. Jeff, I know you were getting into some more Buffalo Trace over the weekend. So obviously we're big fans of Buffalo Trace on the show. So why don't you let the people know in case they haven't heard the last couple of episodes?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I enjoy it. I put a splash of water in it, and it really brings out a little bit more of the flavor, goes down smooth. And, you know, I'm taking my time with it, Bill. You know, I feel like a good bourbon, you shouldn't rush into it. You shouldn't drink it in like 2 days. So I'm taking my time with it a little bit every day of the week. I'm good.
There you go. Yeah, just like a little taste. And I like the little splash of water in there. That's the way to do the bourbon or do Scotch. That's how you know people know their stuff when they put a little splash of water in the bourbon or the Scotch. So good on you for doing that. And I think that's about all we got for this week. If you want to let us know what you've been drinking, then reach out to us on social media. You can catch Jeff at @animal_Wilson on Twitter. Of course, you guys all know where to find me at MMA on the Rocks. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, probably a few other places. And if you're listening anywhere else, you can find this podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube. If you're watching us, if you want to see our faces, what we look like, you can do that now. It's possible. All right. My name is Bill Welker. This has been MMA on the Rocks. Thanks for listening. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.